Hi, Elanna. It's great to see you.
Hey, Sarah.
So, for those of you who we haven't met yet, my name is Sarah, and I'm on the corporate communications team at KinderCare. And I'm here with Elanna Yalow, who is our Chief Academic Officer. And today we're going to be talking about parent guilt. So, Elanna, first, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with me. Um, Before we get started, is there anything that you want to share about yourself?
Sarah, first I want to congratulate you. You just had a new baby.
I
So
did.
what so exciting and what a fun time for you and your family. I've been with the company for over 30 years. So I've been with the Kinder Care for a long time and I just love what I do. I get to be with our teachers and our children and help develop educational programs. So I'm blessed to be here with you today.
Yeah, well, thank you again. It's so nice to see a friendly and familiar face in these crazy times. As Alana mentioned, I'm a new mom. I have a 6-month-old daughter named Rose, and I recently returned back to work from maternity leave. And I'd sort of heard about parent guilt as this looming emotion that parents or caregivers really face upon coming back to work, especially. And I experienced it for the first time. It felt really real to me, even though I'm still working from home, and even though I'm, still able to see my daughter throughout the day. Those feelings are even more amplified right now, living in COVID times, if you will. So let's talk a little bit more about that, and hopefully you have some words of wisdom to share with me and share with all of my parent friends who are going through this shared experience. So, you know this. You have two boys. As a parent, I think you always want to do what is very best for your child. And sometimes it's hard to know what that is. And, parents these days are faced with so many decisions. Um, and it's hard to know exactly what that is. So what would you say to a parent who is maybe faced with the decision to go back to work, to stay home, or really grappling with what to do right now with their children?
So Sarah, again, congratulations on your new baby. And it's there's no way to really say what's best for any child or any family. I'd say the most important thing that we know about young children is they need to feel safe and they need to feel secure and they need to feel loved. So I just start with that make sure that your child, that you are spending quality time with your child, and that you are really giving your all. And another really important thing to remember is it's hard for you to give your all if you're not taking care of yourself. So start with self care.
Yeah.
You can give your best when you're at your best. So I think sometimes parents feel a little bit torn because they think they have to be doing everything for their child, and there's so much that their child needs. But somewhere in the space of the day, you just have to start by taking care of yourself.
Yeah. I love that. I think that is one of the things that's often so much easier said than done. Especially for so many of us who are working from home and the lines have become even more blurred. But I love the idea of just carving out a little bit of time, if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes, if you have them, to really kind of be you and take care of yourself. I know one of the things that your team often says is that you can't pour from an empty cup. And I think about that a lot. That's something that I love to remind myself.
And I think that relates to, if you're trying to decide whether or not you want to go back to work, if work is something you love or something that you really need to do in order to support your family, then you're going to be more torn if you're staying at home, if there's a part of you that really wants to be doing something else. So just because you're not with your child 100% of the time doesn't mean you don't love your child
Yeah.
100% of the time. And also, if you're thinking about, putting your child into an early learning center, I think it's really important to think about all the advantages of that environment. You have, even if you're home with your child, you're doing other things during the day, whereas in a center, they have an opportunity to be with other children, to be with caregivers, with teachers who are 100% dedicated to meeting their needs, and they have an opportunity to grow and play with children of their own age. So in addition to all the school readiness skills they may be learning, they're learning socialization and cooperation and sharing and taking turns and all those other important skills that it's really hard for them to develop unless they're interacting with other children of their own age. And again, an environment where there are adults who are equally dedicated to serving you and your family and your children and really meeting everyone's needs. And it also gives you the opportunity to have the time you spend with your child really be quality time. Again, if you are home all the time with your child, you are torn between all the other demands that you have just from being at home. It may be whether you're taking care of the house or if you're trying to get work done at home. But if you can create an opportunity where you have quality time for yourself to do the things that are important for you, and then really quality time with your child, instead of being pulled in so many different directions at one time. So I think that, it all depends mostly on what feels right to you and your family. But I think you should think about how to celebrate whatever experiences you're creating for your child. Again, the most important thing is your child feels loved and cared for and will be so happy to see you at the end of the day. And as the child gets older, to be able to share with you all the things that they've learned.
As I mentioned at the start, you have two sons who are now grown. I think a lot of parents wonder when that sort of looming guilt feeling will ever go away. So I guess two questions for you. Do you sort of remember feeling guilt when they were younger and you returned to work or school? And what was helpful in processing that emotion if you did?
No, it's interesting. It's interesting that you asked that. When I grew up, my mom worked, and she was an accomplished scientist, and her work was incredibly important to her. So and she went back to work when I was extremely young, and when my brother was extremely young. So we grew up in a family where having a working mom was just the expectation.
Yeah.
So I always kind of grew up with that expectation for myself. So I did feel a strong sense of kind of responsibility to make sure that the environment that they were in was the right environment for them. I
Yeah.
remember when my first child was, we just moved to a neighborhood and really looking for the right center environment, and saw many centers that did not feel right. And no matter how much I knew I was planning on going back to work, I knew I couldn't leave my child there.
Yeah.
And then when I found the place that felt comfortable and felt right, where I knew he would be cared for and loved and have all these rich experiences, then it made it easy for me. So I don't want to say like I didn't miss him at first,
Sure.
that there wasn't a little bit of that separation from my end,
Yeah.
but I never really felt that guilt. And to this day, I actually think my children are proud of me for having a career.
Yeah.
So as they grew up, uh, at least the feedback that, and the way they talked about it was with the sense of pride about what I was accomplishing. So again, I think it's all the dynamics of your own family. And I think what they saw was that I love what I was doing. I love working with children.
Yeah.
I love the people I work with and the dedication that they have. And the joy that I felt made it easier to share that joy with them.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I think, as a mom who's working, that makes me feel really good. And I think similarly, I had a girlfriend that I was chatting with. I said, oh, the first week back was really hard. And it was tough to be away from Rose. And she said, but think about what a good role model you're being for her and how neat it is and will be for her to see you working. And that gave me a totally different perspective on it. And I think that's helpful.
And
So,
I actually think that's such a good point, Sarah. And I think it's important to think that you are, as a working mom, a working parent, that you're a good role model, whether it's for your son or your daughter, that they see that everybody who either has the capability or who wants to or the interest in like contributing back outside of the home, and not everybody does, but for those that do, that they have something to be proud of. And can feel that sense of accomplishment. So again, I think it's finding your path inside yourself, and I think that children grow to appreciate that and honestly benefit from it because back to where we started, you have more to give when you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah, completely agree. Before we sign off, I just want to ask if there's anything else that you want to share with our parents and families before we go.
No, I think the only thing that I would add is sometimes, often, I know it can feel pretty overwhelming being a parent, particularly when the world feels so complex as it does right now with so many challenges. Um, don't forget the pure joy of childhood. Find that moment to just reflect on just the miracle of your child's learning and growing and watching them learn to explore and the relationship that you have with them. And I think sometimes it's easy to talk about like how stressful it can be, and all that is real. That's all real.
Yeah,
But there is just a miracle of childhood that can never be replaced by anything else. And see through all the crazy world that we're living in to find that, and just reflect on how lucky you are to be a parent and to be able to share life's journey with your young one.
that's fantastic. Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you again for your time, and I will talk to you soon.
Sarah, it's so good seeing you. Take good care.
Thanks. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.